JD Vance just did an interview with Jake Tapper, and this was insane. He did such a bad job. I have a feeling that Donald Trump's going to try to put him back in the closet for the next 8 days. Here's the highlights, and I've got all the evidence of JD's lies interspersed.
So let's talk about things that he wants to do that are feeding into this concern that people like John Kelly and General Mattis and General Milley have. He said on Friday, Special Counsel Jack Smith should get thrown out of the country.
And we should throw Jack Smith out with them, the mentally deranged people. Jack Smith should be considered mentally deranged, and he should be thrown out of the country.
He's threatened to arrest election officials who cheated. We know that he believes a lot of people cheated that did not cheat.
Now, a jury ruled Giuliani owes them around $150 million for spreading lies about them after the 2020 election. He said he didn't have the money, so now it's these assets. His New York City apartment in just 7 days.
Yes, if you violate the law, you should be arrested. Yes.
No one disagrees with that, but he's talking
Apparently
about...
you do, based on the way you're asking the question.
No, based on the fact that he's accused people that didn't break the law of breaking the law when it comes to the election. And if you want to revisit that, I'm happy to. But Liz Cheney, he said, should be put before a war tribunal.
He reposted a Truth Social post saying that Liz Cheney should face military tribunals. I'm going to read for you some of what this post said. It said, quote, Elizabeth Lynn Cheney is guilty of treason. Read Truth if you want military tribunals. We also saw Donald Trump share a different post calling for the jailing of President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, his former Vice President Mike Pence. Again, all very troubling.
None of that sounds fascist to you at all?
No, of course it doesn't. Of
Putting
course
Liz
it
Cheney
doesn't.
before a military tribunal?
First of all, I don't buy into the premise of what you're saying, Jake, because I just on things that I know that he said, on things that I know that he said, you're imputing things, you're taking words out of context, you're taking two separate conversations and pretending that they were made at the exact same time. So I'm rejecting the premise of your question. I frankly don't believe what you're saying about Donald Trump's words. If you'd like to put up a clip and actually put him in context, I think the American people would realize that Donald Trump is a hell of a lot more reasonable than the people like Liz Cheney who would like to lie us into war.
Somebody asked me, can they be brought together? You know, I never thought, really, I wasn't thinking like they could, because they're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists, and they're sick. I use a guy like Adam Schiff because they made up the Russia hoax. It took 2 years to solve the problem. Absolutely nothing was done wrong.
Yeah, nothing at all was done wrong between Russia and Donald Trump. I mean, Russia didn't have bot farms that were out trolling for Donald Trump for him to win the election. We're adversaries. We're supposed to be adversaries. An adversary wouldn't do that for an adversary.
They're dangerous for our country. We have China, we have Russia, we have all these countries. If you have a smart president, they can all be handled.
We're talking about Donald Trump and what he says.
Yes.
And Donald Trump says...
And you'd much rather talk about what Donald Trump allegedly said than what Donald Trump did in office.
I'm talking about
what he did in office, Jake,
what he said publicly.
1.5% inflation.
The military to go after the enemy within, which is the American people.
He did not say that, Jake.
The enemy within?
He said that he was going to send the military after the American people. Show me the quote where he said that.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
He said the enemy within.
He said far-left lunatics. He's talking about people rioting.
And Schiff.
He's talking about people rioting after the election.
I have watched every clip about him talking about the enemies within, and none of them is he talking about rioters or people burning down American cities, because, for one, no one burned down any American cities. And if someone did, show me that American city that was burned down. Because, for your information, I live in downtown Minneapolis. So it would be news to me if my city was a pile of soot.
I think
the Pelosi's were rioting after the election?
He said...
Adam Schiff was rioting after the election?
You're using two separate phrases. He said about using the military that far-left lunatics, people who riot in the wake of an election, people who burn down American cities in the summer of 2020, yes, we should have a federal law enforcement
This is what
response.
he said to Joe Rogan on Friday. The enemy within that he wants the military to go after.
No, this is the
enemy
thing.
within a bigger problem than Kim Jong-un.
The second part.
We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. That's who the enemy within.
And did he say that he wants to use the military against those people?
He here's the game. Use the military to go after the enemy within.
Here's the game that you're playing. He said
I'm not playing a game.
No. Can I answer the question, please? He said that he wanted to use the military to go after far left lunatics who are rioting, and he also called them the enemy within. He separately, in a totally different context, in a totally different conversation, said that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff were threats to this country.
Were the enemy within.
Were
the enemy within. He said they were the enemy within.
So every time he uses the exact same phrase, we assume that he uses
I don't know. I don't throw around the term of enemy within to talk about using the military against going American people.
And you're asking his vice president, but you won't let me answer the question. I'm telling you that Donald Trump has said, and I agree with him, that we should use the U.S. military to go after
Americans.
People who riot, who burn down our cities.
And this was what John Kelly was.
National Guard.
This was what John Kelly was alarmed by: the idea of using the U.S. military to go after Americans.
Yeah, like when Donald Trump wanted them to shoot the protesters in the legs. And some of this loyalty that Donald Trump's talking about from his generals is them stopping him from doing that. Imagine if those speed bumps weren't there anymore. We'd have people with shot legs. What happened to First Amendment rights around here?
That's what he said.
Donald Trump never said Americans writ large. You keep on putting words in his mouth and my
mouth. Or are they not Americans?
Far left people who commit acts of violence, who riot. And
now you're doing a very narrow definition of what he said, which is not what he said. That's not what he said. But let me ask you the bigger question.
He did say that, Jake. He did. He said that he wanted to use the U.S. military. Let me clarify.
To go after far left lunatics, yes. And then he also added
people who were rioting and looting.
And
he never said.
He added Schiff, and then he added the Pelosi's.
He
added people that don't want the country to succeed.
He said that Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi he used in a separate context and a separate conversation. And what you're doing is you're smashing two totally different conversations.
Fox asked him about this last week, and he didn't take issue with it. He said the enemy within is the biggest threat to this country.
But did he say the enemy within, that he's going to use the military against Nancy Pelosi?
He went so far as to identify two of his rivals, Representative Adam Schiff of California, who led the first impeachment inquiry into Trump, and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
We have a lot of bad people, but when you look at Shifty Schiff and some of the others, yeah, they are, to me, the enemy from within. I think Nancy Pelosi is an enemy from within. She lied. She was supposed to protect the Capitol.
Donald Trump offered Nancy Pelosi the National Guard on January the 6th, and according to private emails, she rejected it.
Investigations determined military leaders confirmed that Trump did not offer to send National Guard troops to the Capitol on January 6th.
And I left out a lot of good shit. I mean, good shit. I mean, this guy totally massacred this interview, like, in a bad way. He got slaughtered by Tapper. Tapper slaughtered this dude. He came out of this looking so bad. And the worst part about this, it's not going to move the needle at all. No matter what they say, it's not going to move the needle at all. Donald Trump could come straight out and say, you know what? You guys are right. I've been following the Yahtzee handbook, playbook, because I think that the playbook that they used is the best way forward to achieve what makes America great again. And yet maybe what they used it for was the Holocaust, and that was bad, but it still got them the power they needed to do it. And I think that using that agenda will get us to where we need to get to make America great again. And the people would be like, yeah! We cannot say anything that is going to make you guys change your minds. No matter how much hypocrisy I point out, no matter how much bullshit I point out that is beyond your guys' belief and understanding, it's not going to matter because you have your bias in the way. And that's the end of the line.